Hello everyone, it's Ms Cari from the Paola Free Library, and for today's online story time, I am going to tell you the true story of Dorothy and her mulberry tree. Now, just like in the movie, there really was a little girl named Dorothy from Kansas. But our Dorothy, she lived right here in Paola, Kansas. Now, in the 1920s, Dorothy moved here with her family when she was about 3 years old, and she lived just down the way on Castle Street. Now, in her backyard sat a mulberry tree, and it was the perfect place to sit in the shade and nibble on mulberries. Now, Dorothy loved to read, and she loved to go to the library to check out books. So she would walk down Maple Street to the library as often as she could and check out as many books as she could and take them home. And she would read them under her little mulberry tree in the backyard. Now, whenever Dorothy's mother wanted to call her in for lunch, she knew just where to look. She would always find Dorothy under her mulberry tree reading a book. Sometimes she was even sitting in the mulberry tree reading her books. Now, Dorothy visited the library so much and read so many books that while she was still in elementary school, that's a fancy word for grade school, the librarian told her that she had read all of the children's books in the library. Can you believe that? Reading every single children's book in the library? The librarian told her that she was going to have to wait a few years before she could check out the books for grown-ups. Now, Dorothy grew up, and in the 1930s, she graduated from Paola High School when she was 16 years old, and she became a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse in Drexel, Missouri. And in the 1940s, she worked on secret rocket research in New Mexico. Can you believe that? That's totally secret agent stuff, isn't it? And in the 1950s, she moved to the Chicago area where she taught school until 1982. But she never forgot the story of how she read every book in the library or how much she enjoyed reading them underneath her mulberry tree. She told the story often to her children and even to her grandchildren. So, today the year is 2020, and on November 1st, Dorothy turned 101 years old. Happy birthday, Dorothy. What a life she has lived, and all of the amazing things that she's seen. Now, if you ask her, she'll tell you that was because she was a little girl who grew up in Paola, Kansas. A little girl with a great childhood and a little girl that loved her library. The library that Dorothy loved is still here today. It's this one. And you have so many more books to choose from and so many new ways to read stories and new ways to see the world. But what you need is a mulberry tree. And now that's going to be here at our library. It's not a real live mulberry tree, but the Dorothy's Mulberry Tree Fund will be buying books and supporting all of the children's services programs. And they're going to try and make sure that everything is here when you want it. Now, Dorothy wants you to enjoy your Paola Free Library, just like she did. And she hopes that Dorothy's Mulberry Tree Fund will help you do just that. And I just want to thank Dorothy and her family for sharing her story. It has brought so much joy to the library to hear that story. And we're so happy that our library meant so much to her in her childhood. And our library even meant so much to her children and her grandchildren from the stories that she told them. And we want to thank them from the bottom of our heart for their generosity and support of our library. And in honor of Dorothy's Mulberry Tree Fund, we have painted a mural in the library of Dorothy reading books underneath the mulberry tree. The end, guys. But not really, because I'm sure that we're still going to hear more from Dorothy and her family. All right, friends. That's all that I have time for today. That's all that I have time for today. So I will see you next week for our next story time. Bye.